Hi and welcome to Charlotte Talks Transformers, where we'll be taking a look at Transformers Animated Episode 5, Total Meltdown. Full disclosure, filler. We've come to our first filler episode. It's not bad, but any filler episode is by definition not a great episode. It starts off a little bit funny. We get to see Bumblebee in a wrestling match with some rando old dude. Like, all the Autobots are sitting in their headquarters, they're watching TV, and then all of a sudden there's this guy, and he's like, it looks like an infomercial, and I'm not really sure what he was pitching. We find out later that he's pitching a sort of techno-organic formula of some kind, or enhancements, but anyways. So the Autobots, they see Bumblebee, and he's in this wrestling match, and his opponent is like this really old dude who comes like creaking out onto like the ring or the stage or whatever the heck you want to call it. And Bumblebee's all like, whatever, man, I can take this. And old dude transforms because I guess humans are doing this now. They're just enhanced, and no one seems overly surprised about this. So big guy transforms, Bumblebee gets thoroughly spanked. Kind of a great moment. Bumblebee's a little bit of a loose cannon almost. He's definitely like not necessarily playing by the rules. So anyways, enhancements, they end up defeating, well, I say they, but the Autobots realize Bumblebee's in trouble and somehow make it all the way to this location that he's at, where this old guy turned big guy is now rampaging around in a parking lot, and Prowl realizes that he has enhancements on his back, or the enhancements are coming from his back, and so he ninja stars those, and then that takes away his mojo, and then he turns back into an old guy. It's a little confusing, it's a little weird, but this show's a lot weird. So this guy that was creating these enhancements and acting as an announcer for the wrestling match, his name is Prometheus Black, and he really doesn't like machines. And even though this is a filler, we get to see some opposing reactions from the humans that we haven't seen so far. So far, everyone's been like pretty cool with the Autobots that we've seen, and then we learn that there's actually a bit of robot racism going on in this corner. Captain Fanzone, who is chief of police, I'm assuming, he's something higher up in the police department. He really doesn't like machines, so this Prometheus Black is like, well, why don't we just use a police force full of techno-organics, and that'll solve all our machine problems. But the techno-organics turn out to be not such a great idea. They're a little bit unstable. So Prometheus Black finds a component that Bumblebee left behind in the battle against old dude turned big dude, and takes it to his lab and is trying to, I guess, figure out a corrosive sort of acid method to break down their alloy, which he finds, but in a weird pseudoscience-y twist, something happens with Bumblebee's components that he's doing with his experiment, and the gases turn him into a meta-human, techno-organic. He's not techno-anything, he's an acid man. He turns into a man made of acid. I don't know. I don't know the science behind that. Someone please explain the science behind that, because damn, how do you do that? So anyways, he decides that all his problems stem from Professor Sumdak, and he's like, oh, this freaking nerd, he's making all these machines, and people can't see how great my techno-organic idea is. So he decides to go to Sumdak Towers and attack Professor Sumdak in a, like, how did this guy think this was gonna end? I mean, yeah, you might attack this guy and beat him up, but I'm sure his empire is still running, and he's got his daughter who's his heir. I think they would just kind of keep on going on, you know, business as usual. But it's a kid's show. That kind of logic doesn't really apply. So he's attacking Professor Sumdak, and because the tower is being attacked, it creates a force field around it. And so the Autobots are trying to get in to save Professor Sumdak, and Ratchet goes and uses his, I don't know what he fights with per se. It's like an electromagnetic thing. Like, he can hold things up in the air or like move things around, almost like telekinesis, but with like these shock things in his hand or in his arm. So anyways, he uses that to punch a hole in the force field and manages to get Bumblebee through and Sorry, but no one else. And then old dude turned big dude shows up for no particular reason and starts fighting the Autobots out there. So now we have two conflicting fight scenes, one going up in Sumdac Towers where Bumblebee is going to rescue Professor Sumdac from the guy his name was Prometheus and he's now calling himself Meltdown, hence the episode Total Meltdown. And we have another fight going on over here, which is Autobots fighting old guy turned big guy in a parking lot. So not going to get too into detail here because it's fairly generic, the fight scene. But something that was really interesting is Professor Sumdac is located right at the top of the tower. So Bumblebee needs to get to the top. So the elevators have been completely dismantled from the acid. So what he does is he hops in the elevator shaft, puts his legs and his back up against the walls, and just drives up. And I'm just like, kudos. It's pretty brilliant. Great plan, Bumblebee. And then on the other side of the fight with the Autobots, another kind of semi-brilliant scene, little guy, old guy turned big guy, throws Optimus Prime up into a bell tower, and his clanging shorts out the mechanism that makes him from an old small dude into a big dude. And so Prowl is like, Optimus, hit the bell, the frequency will short him out. So Optimus takes his axe and he's like hammering, and then he like throws the he throws the bell. He just takes the bell from the bell tower and just like brings the bell next to the guy and just like clanging away on it. And the dude's like, ah! And it just kind of shorts him out. And then they basically, Sorry goes and drops the force field. And so the Autobots that were fighting little guy turned big guy go up and they bring the bell with them. And Optimus Prime just is like running with this bell on his shoulder and he just like throws it at the dude. And just like, he's like, eat bell kinda. And then he just chucks it. And the dude like kind of gets hit with the bell, but the bell like lands on top of him. And everyone's all like, cool, I guess. But this guy's made of acid, so he melts through the bell. And then they discover, oh, well, we can probably use the force field to contain him. So Sorry hooks Ratchet up to the system that controls force field, and then Ratchet force fields him. And all's well that ends well. I don't really know what to say about this episode. I will say one thing, though. This episode was very Bumblebee-centric. He did sort of an Edward Elric this episode where he's really sensitive about his height. A lot of the others were, you know, making height puns, you know, or like kind of teasing him and being like, oh, he came up a little short today, ah ha ha ha. And Bumblebee was getting a little bit frustrated with that, but I feel like if you know Transformers, you know that they have enormous Titan bots, and then they have like mini bots and micro bots, and Bumblebee's just sort of averagey. Like, he's not on the tall side, but he's definitely not the shortest one, so I don't know. A little odd that they'd be making fun of him for his height. I mean, he's by no means the shortest Autobot we've ever seen. Seems a little mean, but whatever. So at the end, they kind of apologize, and I guess the whole episode was the team learning not to harass Bumblebee about his height, because that seemed to be like the moral of the episode at the end, where they're all like, oh, sorry for teasing you, Bumblebee. And then Bumblebee's all like, ah, it's okay, bruh. And then he like just goes back to his, you know, normal chipper self, and then not much else happens. So I'm not willing to call this episode bad, but it was a filler episode. So I believe that's all I can think to say about this episode. It was okay. Definitely not going to rank in even probably my top 20 favorites. It was very monster of the week, and I'm not a huge fan of sort of monster of the week type style shows or even like episodes unless they're like really, really well done. I prefer things that like drive the plot a little forward. As far as I can tell, there was nothing plot related going on in this episode. So I don't know if you watch the series, maybe feel free to skip this one. I don't know, unless Meltdown pops up again later. Sometimes they like to do that. They'll introduce some randos, some random bad guys in season 1 and then have them show up again in like season 2 or whatever later. So it was an okay episode. Yeah. Leave a comment, subscribe. Love to hear from you.